Hello and a warm welcome to Federal Special Program Capital Beat. The opposition parties have brought in a no confidence motion against the Modi government. And this comes at a time when the deadlock and the impasse continues in parliament over Manipur. The Manipur clashes have left more than 150 people dead, thousands displaced, and the unspeakable horror stories still coming out almost every day. Now, what is this no confidence motion really going to achieve? Because we do know, and even the opposition knows, that it will not pass the test of number. But can the opposition win the war of perception through this no confidence motion? I'm joined by the Congress National Spokesperson Supriya Shrinate. Thank you so much, Supriya, for joining on the Federal. And my first question to you is that what would you really say to the insistent stand of the government? Government says that they are ready for a discussion inside parliament, but it's the opposition which is bending and changing the rules.
So thanks for having me on your show right here, and it's a travesty of our times. And let me just step back a little and understand what is this all about. Is the opposition being adamant? Is the opposition being unjust? Is the opposition being unfair? As the government says, absolutely not. I mean, if this is not going to make the Prime Minister come and speak in Parliament, then what will? Please, let's understand what has happened. There is a part of this country, a state of India, which has been strife with violence and gruesome crime against women for the last 3 months. It took a horrifying video for the Prime Minister to speak on Manipur for the very first time. He spoke for 36 seconds on Manipur before indulging in a your rape versus my rape sort of politics. And that's exactly the cue that his ministers, his spokespersons, the troll army was waiting for. And he scripted the toolkit in many ways. But the reality is what has happened in Manipur. There are ethnic clashes, 142 people dead, 60,000 displaced, women and children where the worst brunt of any kind of horrifying violence like the one we've seen. And we saw Rahulji go there, and when he came back, the kind of horror stories that he told us were unimaginable. I mean, the plight of these people, if we are not going to sit there and tell Manipur that we are with you, if we are not going to appeal for peace, then we are really failing the times that we live in. And who should appeal for peace before anybody else? The Prime Minister of this country. You are the elected Prime Minister for 140 crore Indians. You have time to address a rally in Rajasthan. You have time to indulge in all kinds of whataboutery and all kinds of political sloganeering in Gujarat. You had the time to visit America, France, Egypt, the West Asian countries. You don't have time for Manipur. You were extremely excited to speak in the US Congress, but it looks like the Prime Minister is ashamed to speak in our own parliament. And I think that is the sum and substance of it. Are we going to fail Manipur, or are we going to tell Manipur that we stand with them in one voice? If there is any bigger issue than Manipur, let's debate that. But is there anything more important, more crucial than Manipur to be discussed?
Absolutely. But Supriya, do you have doubts that probably the government might not allow the discussion to happen at all on Manipur?
I mean, quite frankly, the brazenness and the shamelessness with which this government has set aside parliamentary democratic traditions, the way they have set aside any room for discussion, any room for debate, leaves very little to be desired. The reality is that there is a no confidence motion that has been accepted against the government. So for all practical purposes, the House does not have confidence in you. You know, the numbers is something. This debate is a lot bigger than just numbers. This is not to prove our strength versus theirs. This is to somehow make the Prime Minister speak. The government is going on functioning as if nothing has happened. The Prime Minister is electioneering. The Prime Minister is visiting different states. I mean, at one level, somebody has to say, and somebody has to wake up and say, this level of brazenness this country has not witnessed. Are you going to behave as if Manipur never happened under your watch? Because please understand, the same Prime Minister, while he was in the opposition, would say, Inki sarkar Manipur mein, Inki sarkar Delhi mein. He would use all kinds of accusations. You are supposedly running a double-engine government in Manipur. What is it accountable for? How does a man like Biren Singh, who says not one but hundreds of such gruesome crime have happened against women, continue in office? What about Article 356 of the Constitution? Why is there no president's rule there? And the reality is, you can't hide behind Rajnath Singh one day or Amit Shah the other day, because there is no is no meaningful discussion that one can have with the Home Minister. Right? Frankly, if there's one person who should tender his resignation even before the Manipur Chief Minister, it's the Home Minister. He stayed there for 4 days. Did he not have intel on this? He came back, he did a all-party meeting. The Manipur Chief Minister wasn't even present, though the next day he came to meet Amit Shah. What did that meeting come about? I mean, so Amit Shah has a lot of questions to answer. And if Mr. Modi doesn't want to answer us, don't answer us. But at least answer your MLA. Your own MLA is saying this is state-sponsored violence. One of your MLAs has been subjected to such gruesome violence that he is bedridden and paralyzed, perhaps, I hope not, but perhaps for the rest of his life. The woman who was your MP in Rajya Sabha and now the governor of Manipur has said, I have never seen crime of this gruesome nature happen. I have told the higher ups, but nothing substantial has happened. Listen to your own people. Don't listen to us, but listen to them and act. I think Manipur needs a healing touch, and that healing touch is definitely not going to come out of the shamelessness and the brazen behavior of the government.
But given the fact what you're saying, that the government has been very brazen and it's just trying to tide over everything, do you suspect that there is some kind of a larger agenda which is being played out by the government?
I think the larger agenda of divisive politics has not escaped anyone. I think Manipur, the way it was handled, is why we have landed here. I mean, 142 people dead, 60,000 displaced for 3 months. This has been going on. And now all kinds of sources are telling mainstream media how the Prime Minister is monitoring the situation himself. What stopped him from monitoring the situation from day one? What stopped him from appealing for peace from day one? I mean, if you hear the BJP people, they tell you he stopped the Ukraine-Russia war, which of course is fake news. But if he did do that, which they claim, and some of the ministers claim on record, even though it was denied by the MEA, why can he not stop the civil violence, the civil unrest in our own country? And may I dare say, the worrying things from Manipur is that the violence, the hatred, and also the disturbance is now spreading to neighboring areas. I mean, Mizoram was on the road. Meghalaya is seeing unrest. So the naked pursuit for power makes strange bedfellows for the BJP. And then you see this kind of stuff happen. I do think I want to voice something that Rahul Gandhi has said consistently, and I believe in it 100%. I think India is an extremely diverse country. You've got to respect local traditions. You've got to respect local culture, languages, ethnicities. I think this willingness, this desire to paint the whole country with one color, one ideology, one language, will lead to something like this? Because people want to safeguard their culture. I think the undermining of local identities, the undermining of local culture, does lead to something like this. The linguistic trouble that's beginning to resurface in some parts of the country, or for that matter, what's happening in Manipur under Mr. Modi's watch. It's a double-engine government. What have you been able to achieve? I mean, Nagaland has trouble going on. One doesn't know what that accord is, only you do. Mizoram is seeing trouble. Meghalaya is seeing trouble. We've already seen what's happening in Manipur. Arunachal has a lot of Chinese incursion. The reality is that your naked pursuit of power has alienated Northeast from the country far more than it has been in many, many decades.
But Supriya, do you feel that what is happening is in Manipur is simply a continuation of probably what we saw in Gujarat in 2002, then probably in Muzaffarnagar we saw the same thing, then in Delhi riots? Is it just a continuing chapter of those communal manifestations which we saw in the previous years?
So I don't think I'm going to simplistically make the same mistake that the BJP makes, which is to paint everything with one stroke. But I think the only parallel that I would definitely want to draw between Gujarat and Manipur is that when Gujarat happened, the riots of Gujarat happened, and it was also called state-sponsored, the Prime Minister of this country and then Atal Bihari Vajpayee told then Gujarat Chief Minister to follow his Raj Dharma. Today's Prime Minister does not have the moral authority to tell his Chief Minister to follow the Raj Dharma, because he has climbed up the same ladder. So with what gravity and with what moral compass can he tell Biren Singh to follow the Raj Dharma? Biren Singh actually showing the mirror to this government. He first orchestrated an entire drama, an entire fake outrage about his own resignation. The resignation was torn on cameras. Now he says that I am going to resign if the higher ups tell me to. Who are the higher ups? There are only two people, Mr. Shah and Mr. Modi. Are you telling me that they have not even toyed with the idea that a chief minister who has failed the state so consistently needs to go? So I think the one parallel that I would want to draw is that when the state shuts its eyes and when the state looks the other way, crime and violence is going to go on unabated. I think when a state wants to check in on violence, when the state wants to clamp down on miscreants, it's going to act. The reality, Niluji, if I may say so, being a woman, and both of us are women, I have not felt as ashamed of polity more than I did when I saw those videos. I was extremely outraged in 2012 when Nirbhaya had happened, I remember. But now that I draw a parallel, you had a prime minister who addressed the nation, who asked for peace, who asked for prayers, who said non-violence is the only way, who said, I understand your pain, I understand your anger, I'm a father of 3 daughters. He tried to soothe the nerves. Mrs. Gandhi and him were in constant touch with Nirbhaya's family. She was sent for treatment. Unfortunately, when she died and her body came back, they stood at the airport tarmac at 2:30 in the morning. It was to send a signal that they stand with women, they stand with half the country's population. Today, you have a women and child development minister. When she's asked a question, she has a meltdown in parliament. I mean, you are the women and child development minister. If you are not going to be shown the mirror on rising crime against women, then who will be? So your fake drama, your manufactured outrage is not going to do justice to the women who go through this crime. And truth be told, I will use this platform to say one very important thing. I think as women, we need to cut across party lines and speak against crime against women. What was the minister doing? Has Miss Irani spoken once on Hathras, or on the Lakhimpur incident, or on Shahjahanpur, or on Unnao where their MLA was convicted, or in the Brijbhushan Sharan Singh case when some of India's most decorated athletes were beaten up, brutally abused, all kinds of character assassination? Did she ever speak a word in favor of women? She hasn't in the last 10 years. So this fake outrage and this fake meltdown that you're having in parliament is actually nothing but admission of guilt, according to me. It is nothing but staying relevant. And to have that fake outrage and then to name Rahul Gandhi for violence, I think that's an obsession that she really needs treatment for.
But Supriya, you feel that this has been one of the most anti-women governments so
Without
far?
a doubt. Without a doubt. And I will tell you why. Sorry, I'll let you finish your question.
No, please, go ahead.
Without a doubt. And I say this more as an aggrieved woman than a spokesperson or a congresswoman. I say this as a woman. Absolutely. You see crime after crime. It's a pattern. Crime after crime. The government stands with perpetrators of crime and not the women themselves. You look at what happened in Shahjahanpur. Chinmayanand was on the dock, the government was standing with them. Sexual exploitation case. You look at what happened on Unnao. Kuldeep Singh Sengar, who's now found guilty of rape and murder, wasn't even arrested till the Allahabad High Court had to intervene. So they were standing with Kuldeep Singh Sengar. You look at Lakhimpur. A woman was disrobed, and this was an elected member of the local council. She was disrobed. They were standing with the BJP MP's brother. You look at Uttarakhand, Ankita Bhandari, she was being pushed into sexual violence, finally killed by the BJP leader's kin. They were standing with him. They raised the hotel down to the ground so that there were no proof found. Look at Brijbhushan Sharan Singh. I mean, what can be more shameless than that? You don't want to talk about ordinary women. Okay, here are most decorated athletes. They are our brand ambassadors. You have called them members of your own family. You don't even want to ask what has happened to them. The Delhi police, Amit Shah's Delhi police told the court that we neither oppose nor support the bail. The same Delhi police, which in its charge sheet says he is accused of sexual exploitation and criminal intimidation, doesn't want to oppose the bail. So it tells you that it's a pattern. They will always give political patronage to the perpetrator of the crime and never a woman. Even in Hathras,
right,
when the CBI charge sheet was filed and it was proven that there was rape, before that, the DGP Law and Order of Uttar Pradesh, including all the BJP ministers, their spokespersons, the central ministers here, kept saying there's no rape. Do they not even understand what a rape means? They kept, there was character assassination of woman that she was seeing this. So because you're having a relationship with someone, you can be brutally murdered or raped. What are they talking about? So absolutely. I mean, you look at that picture that the Prime Minister posted. with his 38 allies. One lone woman. Anupriya Patel's hiding somewhere in the corner. I mean, they are an absolutely anti-women mindset. If they weren't, the Prime Minister wouldn't be following social media accounts of people who openly threaten women with sexual violence, they abuse women. He follows them, and they write very prominently, proud to be followed by Honorable Prime Minister. He needs to take a stand on that.
But Supriya, my question to you is that opposition is trying to ask so many questions from Mr. Narendra Modi. So far, he hasn't answered. Whether it is Manipur, whether it is the earlier issues, somehow the accountability has not been able to be fixed. And this is what the aim is, that who should be held accountable for Manipur? That's $1 million question, whether it should be Amit Shah, whether it should be the chief minister, whether the buck stops at the prime minister's table. Now, who's going to fix the accountability? Because given the brazenness which everyone is observing, which is there with the Narendra Modi government, what if he gives a statement inside parliament, but even then he ducks away the question on Manipur, like what we saw in the short statement which he made? He started talking about Rajasthan and Chhattisgarh. What if inside the house he doesn't talk about Manipur and he starts targeting the opposition and walks away with the brownie points, which he usually does?
Are you telling me that the country is not going to witness when the Prime Minister speaks? Mr. Modi and his minions may think that they can divert this debate and make it about your rape versus my rape, your state versus my state. Is there a parallel you can draw between Manipur and any other crime that has happened against women in any other state? I personally believe that any crime against any woman, irrespective of the state, Congress rule, BJP rule, non-Congress, non-BJP, doesn't matter. It's a crime against half this country's population, is a crime against humanity. It's a horrifying thing to happen. But I think what follows that crime, what does law and order do? How do governments react? What do chief ministers do? How do law enforcement agencies kick in? I think in every state that Mr. Modi has named, and he was brazen and shameless to make this your rape versus my rape after speaking for 36 seconds on Manipur, when he made that 8-minute 25-second statement, was speaking about a long sawan and mere dost and falana, dimkana. The reality is that in any other state, has any other state been witnessing violence and complete collapse of law and order for the last 78 days? Has any other state had a governor say, this is absolute travesty? Has any other state had a ruling party, the MLA, say this is state-sponsored violence? What parallel are they drawing? And are you telling me that the country doesn't understand what they're doing? The outrage is on account of the fact that this deflecting tactic is not working. They may believe for their ecosystem, for the right-wing Bhakt Mandali, it may be a master stroke that the Prime Minister has done. But the reality is, beyond the troll army, there is an India where the conscience is still alive, where the conscience still tells you that no, there is no parallel between Manipur and anything. If the Prime Minister comes to the house and doesn't speak on Manipur and speaks on everything else, he is going to be exposed before the nation. And the Prime Minister cannot draw a parallel between Manipur and any other state. He has tried to do that, and the more he does it, the more he exposes himself. But to just take a cue from something that you were asking me on accountability, the Prime Minister is accountable for showing green flags to trains. The Prime Minister is accountable for going and inaugurating any shauchalaya in this country. The Prime Minister is accountable for inaugurating any small railway track. But the Prime Minister is never accountable for something that goes wrong. So the bouquets are mine, but the brickbats should be distributed everywhere else. I mean, if that is not a weak Prime Minister, I personally feel Mr. Modi has lost the plot. I personally feel that Mr. Modi is extremely rattled, because if he wasn't, after saying "Main ek akela sab par bhari," chest thumping, he wouldn't go and cobble together 38 other parties. 24 of them have 0 MPs, 7 have 1, and 2 have just 2. So he wouldn't do all of this. The reality is that he's rattled. He's extremely scared of the ground shifting beneath his feet. But I think on this, he has to respect women in this country more than anything else. And this is beyond women. This is the kind of violence that children in Manipur, I mean, the visuals that came in after Rahulji had gone there, and I remember he was at these relief camps and he asked children, what do you miss? And they said, we just want to go back to our houses. We just want to go back to school. We miss playing football. I mean, if that doesn't move you, then I doubt anything will.
Now, the center yesterday told the Supreme Court that, the investigation will be done by the CBI. in this Manipur case, and especially the video case. Now, what does that goes to show? That is Narendra Modi government trying to say that they do not have faith in the investigative process of their own chief minister? How would the opposition really read this?
So if you do not have faith in the investigative process of your own chief minister, how does he continue in office? I think that's the counter question. You do not have faith that there will be a fair probe in Manipur and the CBI is going to step in. It's going to be done out of Manipur. How then does Viren Singh continue in office? You've lost faith. So instead of losing more faith and more sleep, you might as well sack him and have president's rule. That's point number one. And point number two is there seems to be this obsession, whatever little that I've read of the affidavit and whatever little has been reported. Again, there is this obsession of finding who shot that video. There is this obsession of trying to retrieve that phone. There is this obsession of saying who made that public. The obsession should be, how did this happen? The obsession should be that not just one, but hundreds of such incidents have happened. Who are the other women? Where have FIRs been filed? Why did it take 78 days and those horrifying visuals to come out in public glare? And only then was the first arrest made. I mean, look at the obsession. The obsession still is who shot it, whose phone, how did it make public? The obsession is how the hell did Twitter allow that video? I mean, thank God for that video to come out. At least these two women are going to get justice. I mean, and who are these women, Neeluji? It's a 15-year-old girl and the wife of a Kargil hero. Can you imagine this government that issues certificates of nationalism to everybody? What do you have to tell the Kargil hero, Mr. Modi? He sobs and he says, I could save my country, but I couldn't save my wife. Can you look him in the eye and say, I am responsible for Manipur? I don't know.
It's really unfortunate, Supriya, the way things are happening. And as a woman, we all deeply feel for whatever has happened. But I really do not know how the accountability will be fixed in this case. But just moving away a little now, and would like to ask you that, given the fact that you have such a brazen government before you all, and you have to think of a counter strategy all the time, and it has to be an innovative one. And it seems that Modi government is quite familiar with the strategies which the opposition is adopting. Now, even if a no confidence motion doesn't rattle him and he thinks that, okay, theek hai, ho gaya, and we'll try and just brazen it out. And whatever has happened so far, we don't think that the Modi government is taking this no confidence motion also very, very seriously. We do not know whether the discussion will happen. Maybe it happens on the last day. Speaker also doesn't think it proper that, he should list the discussion immediately. Not just talking about Manipur, but overall, whatever issue comes up, be it women, be it farmers, be it price rise, don't you think that the opposition will really have to come up with some innovative strategies if you have to fix up the accountability also in your campaign narratives, because now it's just run up to the general elections?
With all due respect, I disagree with you a little, because if you actually see the counters that's coming from the BJP, or the kind of things that the BJP has stooped so low to say, they are baffled. I think they're playing on our pitch. I think it's our narrative that's driving their actions. The reality is that the like-minded alliance of 26 parties that has come together, the Indian Development Inclusive Alliance, Indian National Developmental Inclusive Alliance, I think it says a lot about who we are and what we stand for. We are fighting for India. We are fighting for the Constitution of India. We are fighting for the voice of people of India. We are fighting for the institutions of India. And which is why it's such a beautiful coalition that has come together. Look at how the BJP is reacting. They are reacting to the name India. I mean, can you imagine a democratically elected prime minister in this country equates India and speaks about India in the same breath as Indian Mujahideen, a terror organization and a symbol of slavery, as East India Company? Can you imagine how low they have stooped to compare us with a terror organization? Your fight was with us all along, I thought. I thought Mr. Modi's, ideological or political opponents are us. But it looks like he's standing against India. And we all know when you pit someone against India, who wins? India never loses. And that's what has baffled them. To the extent that Mr. Modi said this, and then all his minions, his ministers, his chief ministers, you may have 10,000 differences with us. You may send your ED and your CBI and your income tax and your paid media and your troll army behind us. But I never thought that there will be a day in this country where Mr. Modi will wage a war against India. And so much of duplicity. What are you waging a war against? Against the name India. Your own handles have BJP for India. You were building a new India. From Skill India to Startup India to Digital India to Khelo India. Weren't you talking about our motherland? Weren't you talking about India? And now some absolutely misplaced, erroneous, foolish voices are out there to abuse India. And who starts it? The Prime Minister. So I'm very confused. Does the Prime Minister himself make a toolkit for the troll army? I certainly think he does. I mean, now having looked at social media far more closely for the last 1 year, the message comes right from the top. First, let's do rape versus rape. Then let's abuse India. Your fight is with us, but you are on a war path with India. And guess what? India is going to ensure justice in Manipur. India will wipe off the tears of every face. India will ensure that the love of the entire country reaches Manipur. India will ensure there will be peace and harmony once again. You have to choose who you stand with and who you stand against. So I do think that our alliance, I do think what we stand for, I do think our name, I do think the kind of issues that we are raising, which are real issues. I mean, is high prices an issue? The Prime Minister goes to Rajasthan and spews venom. You like the color red? Let's talk about red. Let's talk about those red eyes that you were supposed to show the Chinese while you were in the opposition. Let's talk about red tomatoes being sold at 300 rupees a kg. Let's talk about the red gas cylinder, which is being sold at 1200 rupees per cylinder. I mean, what kind of statements does the Prime Minister make? He has left no dignity of his office intact. But the reality is that the country sees through it. You want to talk about unemployment, the Prime Minister will tell you something else. You want to talk about high prices, I mean, is this a narrative? So I think I disagree with you. I think he's rattled. I think he's scared. I think he's running helter-skelter. Because if he wasn't, he wouldn't be electioneering in Rajasthan and Gujarat when Parliament is in session. So he is running helter-skelter. और मुझे लगता है हिंदी में जैसे बोलते हैं वो छुपे छुपे भागे भागे फिर रहे हैं क्योंकि वो सदन का सामना नहीं कर सकते.
You made a strong statement in my earlier question where you said that Modi is a weak prime minister. He has lost the plot. So the plot is lost in terms of narratives, if I may understand, Supriya, from whatever you have said, narratives and the perception.
I think Mr. Modi is extremely detached and extremely disconnected with the reality on the ground. I think Mr. Modi has completely lost the the touch that he once used to have with people on the ground. What are people worried about? People are worried about high prices and joblessness. Mr. Modi is telling them something in America. Mr. Modi is lying through his teeth. I mean, he has been caught lying. India's Prime Minister caught lying. You told on the 23rd of June, the US Congress, that we are building one IIT and one IIM every year. Your own government fact checks you. Within 1 month, on the 26th of July in Rajya Sabha, your government says for the last 5 years, not a single IIT and not a single IIM has been built, which also undoes the whole achievement false narrative. So you can't lie. The fact that India's Prime Minister is caught lying again and again and again tells you that he doesn't have a story to sell. I mean, you can go and inaugurate a building and somebody else can operate the drone and you can still have the remote in your hand. It tells you why is he forced to lie? And lying is a pathological problem. I think people lie when they have something to hide.
Wish you all the best, Supriya.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
It is wonderful having you on the program. And one appeal to the viewers who are watching this interview, subscribe to our channel, send us your feedback. Stay tuned to The Federal. Thank you.
Subscribe to The Federal's YouTube page for more news and updates.